Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Montoya. I'm the Senior Director of State Capacity Building for State Voices. During the months leading up to the 2020 election, voters are picking up their civic duty mantle and entering into this presidential cycle with a range of expectations. We were expecting to have a voice in our democracy, and we were expecting the inevitable controversies at the polls. But what we know for sure is there are a lot of things we can do as voters to protect ourselves and ensure we can cast our vote. Voter suppression is a tactic that is used to drive us away from the polls. But in this cycle, we have to keep our spirits up and we have to support our people on the ground to ensure they have what they need to vote with confidence as well. We want to remind folks there are a few ways to protect your vote. Know your polling location. Could have changed since the last election, but it's important to do the research before you go to the polls. Check your registration. Some of you might have been registered forever, or maybe you moved. Either way, make sure you're registered to vote. And if you have any issues at the polls, there's a great resource called 1-866-OUR-VOTE, or you can go to their website, 866-OUR-VOTE, or call 888-VE-Y-VOTA for information in Spanish. We here at Save Voices are going to provide you with the tools and resources to protect your vote and be prepared in every way. On today's show, we'll be discussing election protection with our panelists, Serena Sebring, Executive Director of Blueprint North Carolina, Sommer Foster, Co-Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer of Michigan Voices, her colleague and co-ED and Chief Executive Officer, Tameka Ramsey, and Juanica Fernandes, Co-Executive Director, Executive Director of Florida State Voices. As you know, over the last few months, we've been rolling out our Voice for Power series to educate our community about the shifts we made in this incredible network. Check out this video about the power of the people in State Voices.
Our affiliated network is a multiracial, multi-ethnic, and multicultural community of advocates, activists, and organizers committed to building people power to transform the lives of our communities, especially those who experience oppression. We believe that centering the leadership, experiences, voice, and votes, Indigenous people of color, BIPOC, women, low-income, and young people is a path to power and a thriving democracy. We are pro-TLGBQIA+, pro-immigrant justice, and pro-disability justice. We center the needs of currently and formerly incarcerated people, low-income, underemployed, and working-class people across the country in cities, suburbs, and rural communities. And we believe that a healthy democracy is one in which everyone is engaged, represented, listened to, and supported regardless of race, gender, immigration status, sexuality, ability, religion, or class. We are committed to challenging ourselves and the institutions around us to ensure no one is left behind in our fight for a better world. No one said freedom would be easy, but when people are oppressed, the work must be done. Oppressed people are crying out and still being unheard. Do you hear them? Join us and lend your voice to a new, most beautiful noise. Listen closely. Listen with love. These are Voices for Power. We're crafting a new anthem, and we will be heard. We're using our voices for power.
All right. We know this election is going to be a big one, and with large turnout comes huge responsibilities. We want to ensure you know your voter rights and how to arm and protect yourself against voter suppression, intimidation, and make sure you have everything you need to take your souls to the polls. We're excited to bring the Voices for Power, the Executive Director of Blueprint North Carolina, Serena Sebring, and co-ED and Chief Operating Officer of Michigan Voices, Sommer Foster. Welcome to the show, y'all. So I know it seems like we're being overly cautionary, but why do you think folks need to be aware of their voting rights for this election cycle?
So I can start. So we know that for instance, in Michigan, that if people don't know their rights, they're less likely to take advantage of the opportunity to vote. Like in Michigan, you are able to vote if you are a returning citizen, if you have a felony record, if you are in jail awaiting trial. And folks don't always know that, so they don't take advantage of the opportunity that they have to vote. Additionally, you can vote in Michigan if you do not have an ID, but you're able to sign an affidavit to verify your identity. And we know that sometimes there's misinformation out there to stop people from trying to vote. And so we work really hard to make sure that our communities know that their rights and they do take advantage of their opportunities to vote.
Thank you, Summer. I really agree. I think that those are critical reasons why it's so important for us to plan our vote, for folks to be made aware of what are our rights at the polls. In North Carolina, as well as in many places across the South, we experience legacies of voter suppression and intimidation that have, unfortunately, for too long been a very effective tactic at limiting the rights that many of our ancestors fought and died to secure. And so we are countering not just the current misinformation, which is prevalent, around not just in-person voting, but also absentee voting, which is a legitimate right, and we have a legitimate duty to count every single one of those, and make sure that people's voices count, and also just the legacy of a history that has included voter suppression, misinformation for quite some time. So very important for folks to understand not just that history, but also that people have the right to cast ballots, both absentee and in person, and to do so free of intimidation.
Brilliant. Thank you both so much. And Summer, how are y'all at the table getting folks in Michigan prepared to protect their vote? And what are you seeing right now in the state?
So in 2018, voters in Michigan passed a voter rights legislation through Citizens Initiative called Promote the Vote, where we allowed no excuse absentee voting, where we allowed for straight ticket voting, where we allowed for same day voter registration. And so we've spent a lot of time working with our partners to educate our communities about those rights gained in 2018 and to educate people on what it means to vote absentee, how to vote absentee to ensure that your vote is counted, to make sure you sign your envelope, where to drop off your ballot in a drop box, all of those things, how you can track your ballot. We are also heavily promoting the 866 Our Vote hotline and letting people know that it is available now. And we are seeing folks in Michigan, voters in Michigan, using that hotline more than ever before this early. And so they are able to answer folks' questions about making sure how they are able to vote, making sure they know where their polling location is, that type of thing. And we are just also asking people, at this point to take advantage of the drop boxes, creating maps so people know where the drop boxes are, and let them know that they have to return it to the drop box that's within their municipality. They can't always just go to the one that's closest to their house because then it might not get counted. But we're working really hard on that.
Sounds like it, yeah. And Serena, you mentioned the deep history of voter suppression in North Carolina. That history is taking a new form now because there are more creative ways in which people are trying to establish these barriers. What are some of the strategies and tactics that Blueprint North Carolina is using to stop voter suppression, and how are y'all keeping people energized?
Thanks, Stephen. So Blueprint North Carolina and our partners began months ago really tracking an uptick in white supremacists and right-wing organizing incidents and just an intensification of those kinds of sources of intimidation. We also have been tracking the legitimate concerns that voters have around voting in a time of COVID. And in response to that, really paired up a concern with safety with a longstanding Blueprint pattern of doing what are called parties at the polls often. Very effective GOTV strategy to meet people at the polls with a tone of celebration, of resilience, and of community. It means a lot to voters to come out and see people that they know there, and to know that there'll be music, or there'll be food, or there'll be fun. And this year we continue to to bring that kind of a presence to the polls in our communities. And we also added another layer in a program called Power, Protection, and Encouragement, which is kind of a riff off of that PPE acronym, because that's what we feel like voters need this year. It's really power, protection, and encouragement to stand in lines that are very long sometimes, and also to face what feels like a very anxiety-producing set of conditions with the encouragement of community-based organizations that they know year-round. And thankfully, the voters in North Carolina have responded, I think, to our work and to that of our partners. And we've seen over half of all registered voters in North Carolina have already voted. And those that have come out already have met over 90 organizations who have joined our Power, Protection, and Encouragement program to hold over 600 events across 60 counties during early voting. And at those events, they receive PPE. There's games. We've seen people playing cornhole or karaoke, and really bringing the best of our community's resilience out to celebrate the civic engagement of our people, which is having tremendous momentum in our state, and which we really want to continue through Election Day.
Wow, that was impressive. You're making it sound like it's a blessing to get out and cast your ballot in North Carolina. I want to move after this. So both your organizations, Michigan Voices and Blueprint North Carolina, do a great deal of work outside of elections. And so I guess I'm curious about how we can break out of this cycle of voter suppression long term. You know, we obviously have some federal and state policies like the Voting Rights Act, but it's very much still seems like we're met with the same challenges every year. What do we need to do to get out of this cycle?
So I think one of the first things that we need to do is we really need to fully invest in our election systems and election equipment. One of the things that we saw in Michigan with the expansion of our no excuse absentee vote is that clerks were really, especially in a time of COVID, not prepared to take on the increase in absentee ballots that we saw. So there was a lot of delay from certain clerks' office in making sure those ballots got into voters' hands. And we want to make sure those get to voters quickly so people can return them and get them back to the clerk's office to make sure that they're counted, because in Michigan, they have to be counted, they have to be received by 8 p.m. on election day. We need to work with clerks to make sure that we are recruiting and training people that understand the different election rules and that are communicating that well to voters as they show up to vote. We also need to make changes to legislations, not only in the state of Michigan, but nationwide, to increase access to the ballot box, to make sure that, you know, in places in Michigan where there's that we don't have access to transportation, that people are able to get to a polling location near their house, or that they're able to access their clerk's office so that they can vote early by absentee. We need to remove those barriers for voters so they're able to exercise their right to vote, not only in Michigan, but nationwide.
I would say that for us, what feels really important is continuing to build capacity around community safety. One key component of the Power, Protection, and Encouragement program is that each of those 600 events has been held in a coordinated fashion by safety teams of 6 to 8 people per site who have made safety plans and who are being supported through a hotline that we have set up. Now, this infrastructure is very important for early voting and election day this year, but also is a seed, is a starting point for engaging far more people in attending to the safety of our community members at the polls going forward. What we are finding at these places where we have safety teams in place that are trained in de-escalation, that are also attending to people's great need for hydration and things like that, is that by deciding that actually we are each other's business, and that we have a shared stake in making sure that every single person, whether we agree with them or not, has access to our polling places that is safe, is a real answer, I think, to the question of what do we do to interrupt legacies of voter suppression? We turn people power directly at it, and we say that we are each other's business. And I think that that's going to make a huge difference, not just this year, but in our communities in post-election moments and also in elections to come.
Oh, Serena is dropping a word today, all right? From retaking or reframing PPE to seeding the future, just incredible things happening in North Carolina. And on that note, want to make sure to just give you all an opportunity to let folks know how they can get more involved and stay involved in protecting democracy rights through your organizations.
So we have a number of partners, about almost 60 partners in the state of Michigan that are working not only this election cycle to help us get out the vote, but do work year round within their communities to make sure we are getting out the vote and protecting election rights and every election cycle, from municipal elections to state elections, county elections to federal elections. Because we know that it's important to elect people the closest to community to make sure that we are protecting the rights of community. So I encourage folks to get involved with our partners like Detroit Action, like Michigan Liberation, like Mothering Justice, Mothers of Hope, to make sure that we're working within communities with the people that are closest to the ground, who are able to make impact on their local, state, federal, and county elections.
For us, the best way to plug into the continuing work in North Carolina this year is actually to sign up for a program called Election Defenders. And these are our national partners who are doing something very similar to what we've been doing with our power protection and encouragement sites all through early voting. Election Defenders in North Carolina will be placed at polling sites with the Power Protection and Encouragement Program. So we're going to merge, we're going to team up to win on Election Day and on the last 3 days of early voting. So if you want to be a part of this program, it is not too late. You can still sign up through the Election Defenders Program, get trained up, and join us at the polls. That's for the last 4 days of early voting. And then on Election Day on the 3rd. We know that if people power is what it takes to keep people safe, we need more hands on deck. And so you are welcome to become part of our team.
Brilliant. That is fantastic. I realize we have a bit of time here since you two were so prepped, ready to go, and just, giving folks a lot of really high quality information. So I just want to, wrap with the two of you a little bit, assuming that you have time over the next 5 to 8 minutes. Getting a big thumbs up from Serena. Brilliant. What's it been like? You're both new to the network. 2020 is obviously a year like no other, and you've had to adapt and you've had to onboard in really trying circumstances. What have you centered yourselves and your leadership in through that experience?
I think it's just been, so I came on as executive director of Blueprint, this really big ship, beautifully built by my predecessor, Aaron Dale, in January. January 13th was day one for me. And then it's just been, COVID to the election it's been a big year. And I'm walking in really big shoes and just trying to stay grounded and humble in the lessons that I learned in community organizing for a decade before coming into this role. I'm blessed to have some mentors like Mandy Carter in North Carolina, among others that have, for years and decades before me, been facing circumstances every bit as trying as this one, and just doing my best, to be honest. But how's it going for you, Sommer?
So I started in March, about a week before the state shut down due to COVID. And we are creating something in Michigan that we haven't seen yet, which is a co-directorship, which has been interesting for Tameka and I to figure out, but also managing a staff that, due to COVID and the office shutting down, that I've never even met half of them in real life, and working and communicating with our staff through Zoom and planning for this very important election cycle. Additionally, we have partners who are, grass seeds partners who didn't have some of the tools and technology that they needed to shift their programs to more digital. They'd planned on doing canvassing, so we had to make sure that we were able to get phones, that we were able to give folks access to some of the texting and dialing technology. We made sure that people who were going out into the field had PPE necessary to do the work. Some of our partners never left the ground. They were doing COVID response work while they were doing voter registration and census outreach. And so working with our partners who were at different levels and who were running different programs, trying to come up with a way for them to be successful and reach their goals, and just providing them the support that they needed to get through this cycle.
I agree that the efforts of our partners to really meet the COVID moment, to meet this election moment, has also, I think, given me a sense of momentum in this time. I think it's clear we're all just trying to figure this out. And our partners have been so resilient and innovative, really, in how to do things like pair mutual aid and civic engagement, that it is very easy to get swept up in the momentum of their work and just trying to get up underneath with support, or how can we sprinkle some glitter on it? Like how can we just take what you're doing and really support and make it grow? It feels almost irresistible. So I'm super grateful for the innovation and leadership of our partners in facing difficult times.
I couldn't agree with you more on that.
That's such a fantastic point to reinforce and stress, Serena. I'm familiar with Michigan Voices, and I've definitely heard Sommer and Tameka talk about grass seeds and grass tops and grassroots, and the interplay between those three types of partner or organizations that are working on behalf of impacted communities. And it seems to track really well, Serena, with what you were saying before about capacity building and growing the strength and planting these seeds. So I just wanted to offer both of you an opportunity to talk a bit more about that, because that's what this network does best. And throughout the network, I think that's what the individual tables are really expert at, is finding partners and helping them grow and adapt and be more successful.
I think for us, in the way that we look at growing the table and growing the capacity of the C3 movement in Michigan, is to look at and really center ourselves in equity and figure out what partners need to be successful, not only to get them through the 2020 election cycle, but moving forward. We were able to invest in things like helping partners hire staff and helping partners get access to computers and laptops and tablets and things like that to really grow the table long term. We had a partner who said they just needed access to payroll software, so we helped them invest in that. And I think we're thinking about things that will carry them on past November, and so that they're able to grow within their communities and build their local capacity.
So important. I think some of the things that our partners have needed from us have been, really the smaller organizations have reached out for help around communications. So preparing folks to meet with media, sharing media lists has been very important, as well as getting connected with funders. We're doing a lot of work to really introduce our partners directly to funders, as well as inform funders about work that is happening on the ground that they might not be aware of. And then I think, the space to do collective work has also been just a very important component of what we're able to offer. It's not even so much what we bring, but what they can bring to each other about what has worked as they've grown to scale. That's been very important for our partners. And then I think being ready to move money through the infrastructure when, immediately after COVID hit, we were all very concerned about, what about the health of the smallest organizations who may have to close doors, because of staying at home or whatnot. And so we were able to actually unsecure some funding and move money directly through when it mattered. And I think we continue to look for moments like that where we need to move resources quickly into the hands of organizations that we have built relationship with, and be willing to also continue in providing containers for collective work, linking them up with the communication support and fundraising support.
I appreciate you both so very much. Thank you for coming to Voices for Power. And everyone, make sure you look up both Blueprint North Carolina and Michigan Voices and their partners. They're all out in the world doing incredible work with and for our communities to ensure they have civic access and representation. Thanks, y'all, and good luck next week at the polls.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, not sure if you've yet had a chance to watch our people-powered virtual vote rally, which incidentally, you can still find on our Facebook, YouTube page. Be sure to subscribe. But one of our close partners, the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, has an incredible campaign called And Still I Vote. And Still I Vote is a national call to action for people to take back the power of the vote. 2020 is the election of our lifetime, and we will not be silenced. In every corner of our country, policymakers have put up discriminatory barriers to the ballot that shut us out. From closing polling locations in Black communities to wrongfully erasing voters from the rolls, including low-income voters, seniors, and college students. They're taking away our right to vote and rigging the system for their own benefit. Let's watch this quick clip.
They tried to silence me.
They tried to block me.
They tried to deny me.
To scare me.
To scare me.
They tried to erase me.
To erase me.
Erase me.
They tried to keep me down.
Keep me down.
Keep me down.
They tried to make me invisible.
Invisible. They tried to pretend I don't matter.
Pretend my people don't matter.
But my people don't matter.
They tried to kill me.
Kill me.
Kill me.
They tried to suppress me.
Suppress me. Suppress me.
They tried to block me. They tried to suppress me. They tried to deny me.
And still.
And still. And still.
And still, I vote.
I vote. Todavía voy a votar.
And still, I vote.
I vote.
And still I vote.
And still, I vote.
Oh man, I love that video. It is so true. They can try to stop us, but we're gonna ensure that our communities have the right to vote. And everyone who's on this panel today is doing such incredible work for that express purpose. So just a reminder, you gotta have a voter protection plan if you want to protect your rights. Crucial. There are 3 things we're asking folks to do this cycle to protect their vote. The first is knowing your polling location. The second is checking your registration. And the third is reporting any problems that you might encounter. There we go. Remember, know your polling location, check your registration, report any problem. You can report through 1-866-OUR-VOTE or 888-VE-VOTA or 866-OURVOTE.org. I'm excited to introduce our next round of panelists. Tameka Ramsey, the co-executive director and chief executive officer of Michigan Voices, and Juanica Fernandes, the executive director of Florida State Voices. So Tameka, we just heard from your colleague Sommer about the work y'all are doing in Michigan. What are some of the lessons you've learned from this cycle that you want to change or shift for the future? And specifically, how does the recent Supreme Court ruling regarding rights to the polls factor into your work?
So Stephen, once again, thank you very much for this opportunity. I've learned a lot of things, I'm sure, as we all have, especially with the national pandemic going on, a global pandemic going on, but how it really affects not only the quality of life, but people's rights and voices when it comes to voting. So one of the things that we've learned is that we need to be ready and able to pivot because things change. Like nobody planned for a pandemic to happen. We were all ready to hit the ground and knock on over 200,000 doors in the first month, and we're unable to do that. And so what we've learned is to make sure that people know exactly how to use the tools and resources that we have at our disposal. disposal. So making calls, sending text messages. I know like people are like, oh my God, if I get one more text message, but that is in lieu of face-to-face contact because we want to keep people safe while we are making sure that everyone is civically engaged. So that was the first thing. The second thing is being able to communicate often to people on their level. So explaining to them about their rights, the changes in our laws in Michigan about being able to vote no reason absentee, to be able to do early voting. Like we said we had enough time to be able to do that. And then a pandemic happened and then there was not enough time. So making sure that we're talking to people on their level about their rights to vote. I think the other thing that we talk about, we always talk about we need to empower people. People are already, they have power, right? Somebody somewhere has tried to strip that power away. And so we repower people, like we re-give them the power that they've always had, and sometimes that we forget that we hold. And so being able to do that has been so amazing on the ground, telling people like you can vote no reason absentee, having mothers take their children to see them vote, making sure seniors are able to vote, and getting our youth involved. In Michigan, we have the highest number of first time voters who are doing absentee voting. So making sure that they know how to fill out the ballot, to make sure they're signing the envelope, like that is very important. And then when it comes to the Supreme Court decision in Michigan on not providing rides to the polls, voter suppression is real. Like there was no organization in the state of Michigan that says, hey, Stephen, you need a ride. Who are you voting for? Depending on who you say, we're going to give you a ride. We said, you need a ride. Here's the method. And not being able to do that really disenfranchise people when we are a state that does not have a lot of mass transportation. So voter suppression is real. It might not look like it does in the South, but it is happening here in Michigan. Thank you.
Whew. That is also a word. Appreciate it, Tameka. And Juanica, in Florida, y'all had a major victory last cycle with Prop 4 and folks who were formerly incarcerated being able to get some voter access. But we've heard there are issues on the ground. What are some of those issues that folks are facing, and how can we shift this dynamic for the future so that they gain full access to vote?
I think that, so first, thank you. And Tameka's so honored to be here with you guys today. I think that we anticipated some issues, right? This is Florida. So we knew that some things were bound to happen, but I don't think we anticipated, much like COVID, we didn't anticipate the governor making his decision to make it mandatory for returning citizens to pay fines and fees. And so that was a challenge that we were facing. But how we've addressed that challenge, one of our table partners is FRRC, and it's led by Desmond Meade. It's an amazing group. And how they've tackled that, and we've tackled that, we're in lockstep with them. And it's affecting about 500,000 people, right, that are not able to pay these fines and fees. And Desmond's raised over $25 million to be able to pay or assist in payment with those fines and fees. So that's the first half. The second half is just that we realized that we're just going to have to register. We had to register a lot more people, and we had to get the word out a bit far and wider, and just make sure that people knew that, hey, this was a challenge. But because of that, we even more need you to get out and vote. We need you to reach down for those family members. We have some programs where we tell people, hey, vote for me. I can't vote anymore, so vote for me. So we're using that also as a tool to combat some like apathy that we saw with other people that are like, okay, I'll vote for this person. So we've kind of turned that around in that way. And we're just really excited, knocking doors. Some people are knocking doors. We provided PPE and for low propensity voters, and we're able to, I think, register over 70,000 returning citizens, and having lots of rallies to just really get people out to vote and get them excited about the process.
Excellent. Thank you so much for doing that incredible work. And yeah, +1 on the shout out to Desmond and the fantastic work of FCCR. Yep. FRCC. Sorry. Tameka, so Michigan has a large Black and Muslim population, as well as other communities, API, Latinx, TLGB, IAQ. that are excited about some of the issues that will impact their communities. Can you talk to us a bit about what those issues are that folks are feeling about for in this cycle?
Yes, and for me, it's important for people to understand that a lot of Black and Brown people vote for issues over people. Like, we have been disenfranchised. We don't normally trust. Like, it doesn't matter who you are, what you're running on. It doesn't matter what party. Like, we have a distrust because we just feel left out. And so issues are really relevant in our community. And so paid leave for all. With COVID happening, being able to be at home with a sick family member, being able to be home with your children who can't go to school is vital. I have an 8-year-old son who has health issues, a pre-existing cause, and I'm fearful to send him to school. If I did not have a job that allowed me to work from home, right, then I would be able to use paid leave for all to be able to stay home if we were able to have that. And right now, the country does not have it. It's very much based on states' rights, where we're trying to make sure that we're passing some of those things on the federal level. The other thing is fair taxes. So we know that corporations don't necessarily pay their fair share. Rich people don't pay their fair share, and a lot of poor and working class people pay more in taxes. And so if we had everybody pay their fair share, like, we would have a better ran educational system, right? We would have money going to that, but also infrastructure in this country would be better off. Our roads would be better, our pipes would be better, and hopefully what happened in Flint would never happen anywhere else. And so we need to make sure that we're focusing on those issues as well, because education, clean water, and being able to be home with your family if they're sick, or to homeschool them to be there, is important. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tameka. So Juanica, in Florida, y'all are organizing a lot of different communities that speak so many languages. The language density and spectrum in Florida is just incredible. In what ways are your partners working with communities to ensure that language access is available to voters?
Yeah, I think Florida is a diverse state, and we often joke that it's 4 states in one. Um, and so we often have to treat it just that way. We try to hire staff and have a wide array of like diverse partners. And when they're looking for staff to reach out to communities, we try to make sure that they're hiring staff that looks like the communities that they represent. Language justice is really, really important to us here at the table. I think we represent in like 3 or 4 different languages, and try to make sure that we are getting out literature in Spanish and Creole. And I think we have even some Arabic that we, for different communities. So that's really, really important to us. We try to keep it at the forefront that not any of the communities that we represent is a monolith, right? So we have African American people, and we have some people that are from Jamaica, and which is a lot different from our Haitian community, as well as the Latinx communities. They're all very different. And so hiring people that look like those people, that understand the different nuances within those communities, is really important to us. And it also keeps us very honest, like in-house, right? When we do the same thing. So we try to make sure that we hold true to our mission, which is to have a diverse representation from all of those communities. And that's how we like to organize within the state of Florida.
Love it. Yeah, cultural competency and language access, so important. So something that we all know about both y'all states, Michigan and Florida, is long lines. That is the reality. And I'm sure, similar to many others, we're all flashing back to 2016 and seeing those lines in Florida. What are some of the ways that people can mitigate standing in those long lines? And if they have to do it, what should they take with them? What should they have?
I can go first, Tameka. All right. So first thing that I want to tell everybody is that we have an awesome poll monitor program, an awesome poll worker program. We're working with over 80 partners and organizations. We're covering over 1,200 sites. We're everywhere. And how we're covering those sites looks differently, right? We have some parties at the polls, we have snacks for people, we have food trucks, there's a whole bunch of things going on because we have historical data that lets us know, kind of gives us an idea of where these lines are going to be. So we're getting ready for these things. What can you bring with you? You can bring yourselves to the party because we're going to take care of you when you get here. But also, just if you want, I always encourage people to bring snacks, right? To bring lawn chairs if you want. But we definitely want to encourage you to just bring your tenacity and stand in the line and make sure that you do not leave until your vote is cast. We also want to remind people that we have people on your side to help make sure that every vote is counted. The 866, our vote number. If you're encountering any issues, we want to make sure that you are calling that number. And I know that we're going to give that number out a ton of times, but we have invested so many resources just to make sure that we are going to stay with everyone until every vote is counted. And so that's what I would suggest you bring with you.
I would tell people to bring yourself earlier. Right? We have early voting. People could start voting as early as September 24th. You can go now. My husband and I took our son on last Tuesday, and we went and we registered for early voting. We got our ballot. We brought it home because my daughter turned 18 on the 11th of this month, and so she's voting for the first time, and we wanted to do it as a family. But now all we have to do is drop it off at the drop box, so you can go vote now. Like the clerk's office in many municipalities around the state are open late. All you have to do is go to the Secretary of State and put in your address, and they'll tell you where your polling location is. And if they have satellite and extended hours, most of our clerks are open until 7 or 8 o'clock to make sure that they get a lot of people. So I would say take yourself earlier. And then, also, take the willfulness and the strength of our ancestors who died for our right to do this, and wait. If the line is a little bit longer, wait. We also have amazing partners around the state who are also going to be providing food, right? We're going to be trying to have DJs, having tents in case it rains. Like, we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to make sure this process is as easy as possible, but they don't want it to be easy for us, right? We know that. And so we need to work harder to make sure that anybody in our family is able to do this, that everybody in our community is able to do this, because this is one of the easiest steps that we can do for our voices to be heard, but it's just the first step.
Yep. I just wanted to add to what you said. Some people they're listening to Tameka because in 2016, we had 6 million people cast their vote. And right now already we had 6.4 million in 2016 total. And already 6 million Floridians have cast their vote. So some people are going early. Keep pushing. That's awesome. There's no excuses. Vote in October, vote early. Just echoing Tameka.
Also, don't put it in the mail. Right now, we're too close. So use a Dropbox, take it directly to your clerk, but do not put it in the mail, because we don't know if it's going to get to your clerk in time. And we want to make sure that if you want your voice to be heard, if you fill out a ballot because you want certain people to be elected and certain proposals to be passed, that actually happens. So please drop it off at the nearest Dropbox, or you could take it directly into your clerk.
Juanica coming through with the facts and figures for Florida. Tameka making the appeal to our ancestors, and so many millions of people already listening to those ancestors and getting out and casting those ballots. So this is maybe a little bit of an uncomfortable question, considering that we're 8 days out from the election, but want to ask, after the election, what's the future for voting rights and democracy reform, both nationally and in your states? And what is your vision for the future?
So mine is like the end of the scene from Black Panther, where they just like run into freedom and fighting for a better tomorrow for Wakanda. Like, we got to do that for the entire country, right? And so we know that it's important and voting is vital, but it's just the first step. Like we have lots more work to do after that. And so it is getting the people in power that live our values, that are going to fight, right, to make sure that I keep my sons, my Black sons and my Black daughter alive, that I don't feel unsafe in my own home because Black people no longer feel safe anywhere in this country because of police brutality. And so I think like once we vote, we then start to hold people accountable, but we also start to look at policies that affect us, that harm our communities, and that we start to rally and fight against those policies. Once again, for someone to tell us that giving someone a ride to the polls is like bribing them to vote is crazy. It is a voter suppression tactic, and we know that this is happening across the country, and it is our job to fight back on that.
I think, listen, I echo all of that. I want to be in Tameka's choir, so I get that. I feel that's a dream for all of us. In Florida, I think my immediate action item is just to be pushing for voter registration reform. We just saw just a couple of weeks ago how outdated the online voter registration system is, how many issues that caused us. So I think my immediate goal for Florida right now is to kind of address those issues. And of course, ultimately, our goal is to have automatic voter registration, right? But in the meantime, we're just going to be taking those steps to ensure that every single person who is eligible to register to vote can do so with as little hassle as possible. And then when it's time for them to vote, that they can do so with ease, without feeling intimidated, without having voter suppression, and just making sure that everyone's voice is heard, right? Which is the American dream.
You know what? Can we talk about the intimidation? And I'm so glad you brought that up. Because in the state of Michigan, like we've had militia go to our Capitol, with guns, intimidating our legislators. We've had conversation about people being scared about if people with guns will come and try to intimidate people. So like that's important to talk about. Like intimidation tactics are real. We're asking people to be safe, to be mindful of other people. I know that people say, well, if the bad guys have guns, the good guys can have guns too. But bullets have no name, and we don't want any type of mass shootouts happening because people are trying to vote. So we are just asking people, like in our state, the Secretary of State has passed some laws that you cannot open carry at the polls. That is currently being challenged, but we're asking people to just be safe. If you vote early, like they can't watch the polls all day, every day, right? So if you vote early, then you won't have those problems. But if you go to the polling location on election day, to be safe. And if at any time you don't feel safe, to either call the 866 number or to call the police is very important. And I know, once again, telling Black people to call the police is scary also, but we have to make sure that we're protecting our communities and all of those babies who are watching their mamas and daddies and grandmamas vote, to learn how to do the process. Like we have to look out for all of them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tameka, I just gotta say, I love your storytelling. You weave this picture of Wakanda, end of the movie, and then you even set it up so that your phone would ding right as you were making your point. It was just masterfully done. I want to stay on this theme a little bit, though, looking into the future. If I could transport y'all to January 2021, what do you think your partners are going to be diving into? What's the meat of y'all's work?
I think the redistricting fight, is really important. We just wrapped up census. And so I think right now, listen, it doesn't stop and it doesn't slow down. Like Tameka said, this is the beginning of a fight, when you're trying to change the face of democracy and make sure that we've done something that's never been done before. It looks like making sure that at every step we are holding our leaders accountable, we're holding ourselves accountable, And we're making sure that we stay engaged and we don't drop off, and we keep voting all the way down to local elections to put people in power that are going to have our best interests at heart and make sure that our babies are safe, that they have education and access. And so that's what it looks like for us.
Well, I'm going to be with you because that's what it looks like for us as well. So look, from Michigan to Florida. I think that's right. Like, it's really important to know that this is just the beginning of the work. A lot of people are hoping that we start to get back to normal. It's like that's not a thing, right? Like, we constructed what that normal is. And so we need to now construct what the new normal will be. I think policies are very important. And I mean, even with what's going on with the Supreme Court, what's going on with the healthcare, like, people understand how important policies are. And I think, like, being able to focus on that to return power back to our people. If we have policies that say that, you know, you can't do something, but we're fighting for it, then we have to fight for that policy to be changed. And I think it's a lot. I've been hearing a lot of ads about defunding the police. And the conversation is, it's a fear mongering tactic that they're using, because no one says we don't need police. We're saying the foundation in which police in this country was built on white supremacy. It was built on keeping slaves and keeping Black people enslaved. And we need to change what that looks like. That we still need to have police because safety and security is in the foremost of all of our minds. But if I'm scared for the people who are supposed to be providing safety and security to the community, then there's no safety and security for us. And so I think, like, policies are important, and people being able to say the world in which they live in, the country in which they live in, is a country that helps support them and somewhere where they can raise their children and not be trying to, you know, sell everything in your damn house to move to Australia, which is what the rich white people doing. Okay. They are. I saw it.
All right. Well, thank you both so very much. Really incredible conversation, powerful words. How can folks find y'all?
So they can find me. I am on Facebook, Tameka Ramsey. You can also look for Michigan Voices. I will get any notification there.
Yeah, so we're on Facebook as well, FLCET. I think we're on Twitter as well. And then I'm on Facebook too. I like new friends, so that works.
Brilliant. Expect some requests to come in very shortly, I'm sure. Thank you again very much, Tameka, Juanica. Really appreciate the time together. Y'all are incredible.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. This was great.
All right, so first I want to thank our guests. We were joined by Tameka Ramsey, Co-Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer of Michigan Voices, Juanica Fernandes, Executive Director of the Florida State Voices, Co-Executive Director, Chief Operating Officer of Michigan Voices, Sommer Foster, and Serena Sebring, Executive Director of Blueprint North Carolina. I want to say it has been my distinct pleasure and privilege to serve as to be part of this conversation, even to just bask in the brilliance of these Black women leaders who are amplifying our voices for power. It's incredible, and this is what State Voices is. These four leaders doing the work and making change happen. So finally, you should know by now that it's not a State Voices event without us making one, final pitch before Election Day. And it's important to make a voter protection plan if you plan to protect your rights. And these are the three things that we're asking folks to do this cycle to protect their vote. Know your polling location, check your registration, and report any problem. You can report through 1-866-OUR-VOTE or 888-VE-VOTA or 866-OURVOTE.org. Thank you all so very much for your time today. Appreciate y'all joining. And again, just a huge shout out to Sommer, Tameka, Juanica, and Serena for their time as well. Appreciate it, everyone.